The ink on our marriage license was barely dry when Ryan turned to me, his face pale as a ghost. Without a word, he walked out of the elegant Seattle hotel ballroom, leaving me standing there in my tuxedo as our guests gasped in shock. I stood frozen, the string quartet still playing softly in the background, the scent of fresh lilies and ocean air from the Puget Sound filling the room. My best friend Marcus grabbed my arm, whispering something I couldn't hear over the ringing in my ears. Ryan's mother, who had flown in from Chicago despite her reservations about her union, covered her mouth with both hands. His father just stared at the empty doorway, his conservative jaw set like stone. I pushed through the crowd, my dress shoes slipping on the polished marble floor as I chased him down the hallway. "Ryan, what the hell?" I called out, my voice cracking. He didn't stop. The elevator doors closed just as I reached them, and I slammed my fist against the cold metal. Our friends from the tech startup where we both worked stood in stunned silence behind me. Sarah, our surrogate who was already 5 months along, watched from the corner with wide eyes, her hand protectively over her belly. We had planned everything so carefully. The egg donor, the contracts, the nursery we painted together in soft gray and yellow just last month. Ryan had been the one who insisted on using his sperm so the child would carry his genes. "I want this to be us, Ethan," he had said during the clinic appointment, squeezing my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. But now he was gone. I drove home alone that night to our Capitol Hill condo, the city lights blurring through tears I refused to let fall. The voicemail from his phone went straight to the generic message. By morning, his closet was half empty. A single text arrived at noon. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. Please don't look for me." No explanation. No mention of the baby we had already named Liam in our private conversations. I sat on the edge of our king bed, staring at the ultrasound photo still pinned to the fridge, and made the first real decision of my new life. I called Sarah and told her the wedding was off, but the pregnancy was still on. "I'm doing this alone if I have to," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She cried with me over the phone, promising she would be there every step. That first week blurred into meetings with lawyers to untangle the joint accounts and the wedding gifts we returned. My parents, who had driven up from Portland and always supported us, flew back early, leaving casseroles and quiet hugs. Ryan's family stopped answering my calls. The local LGBTQ center offered counseling sessions I attended twice a week, sitting in circles with other men who had been left for reasons that never quite added up. I threw myself into work at the software company, coding late into the nights, so I wouldn't have to face the empty side of the bed. Friends tried to set me up on dates, but I couldn't imagine kissing anyone else while Liam kicked inside Sarah's growing belly. By the time the leaves turned gold over Lake Washington, Sarah went into labor 2 weeks early. I held her hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement while the doctors monitored the monitors. When they placed Liam in my arms, tiny and perfect with Ryan's dark hair and my green eyes somehow, the world shifted again. This time for the better. I whispered his name against his soft forehead and promised him the life we had planned, even if it was just the two of us now. The nurse took photos I knew I would never send. Ryan had made his choice. I made mine. I was a father. Ryan landed in Chicago with nothing but a duffel bag and the crushing weight of what he had done. The apartment he rented in Lincoln Park overlooked the lake, but the view felt cold and empty compared to the foggy mornings in Seattle with Ethan. He took a job at a larger tech firm downtown, the kind with glass walls and endless espresso machines, telling himself the promotion and the distance would fix the panic that had gripped him the moment the officiant said, "Husband." His parents welcomed him back with open arms and subtle relief. "We always knew it was a phase," his mother said over Sunday pot roast, patting his hand like he was 15 again. His father clapped him on the back and talked about the family business they expected him to join eventually. Ryan smiled through it, dating a woman from accounting named Claire who laughed at his jokes and never asked why he sometimes stared at his phone during dinner. The guilt arrived in waves. He deleted Ethan's number 3 times and re-entered it twice. He avoided social media, but one drunken night, he searched Ethan's name and saw the announcement. "Proud to welcome our son Liam." The photo showed Ethan beaming in the hospital, holding a newborn wrapped in a blue blanket. Ryan's stomach dropped. He knew the dates. He knew the biology. But he closed the laptop and poured another drink, telling himself Ethan had moved on with someone else. The lie kept him functioning. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Ethan learned the rhythm of single fatherhood the hard way. Diapers at 3 a.m., pediatrician visits where nurses asked about the other parent, and quiet evenings reading board books to Liam while rain tapped the windows. His boss gave him flexible hours, and Marcus became the cool uncle who brought takeout and built elaborate train tracks on the living room floor. Ethan joined a local dads group at the community center, surprising himself by bonding with other gay fathers who shared stories of surrogacy battles and court fights for parental rights. The city felt smaller but safer. He started volunteering at the Pride Festival, pushing Liam's stroller through the crowds while rainbow flags waved overhead. Liam's first birthday came and went with a small gathering on the rooftop deck. Ethan blew out the candle alone while Liam clapped at the flames. He didn't cry that night, but he allowed himself one long look at the framed photo of Ryan from their engagement trip to the San Juans. "You missed this," he whispered to the empty room. Where promotions followed, and Ethan bought a small house in Ballard with a backyard big enough for a swing set. Friends stopped asking about Ryan after the second year. Life settled into a steady, if lonely, pattern. Sarah sent yearly updates and photos, always ending with the same gentle question: "Have you heard from him?" Ethan's answer never changed. Ryan's second year in Chicago brought a promotion and a serious relationship with Claire. They moved in together, and for a while he believed he could build the straight life his family had always pictured. But the nightmares came anyway. Ethan's face at the altar, the ultrasound, the tiny hands he would never hold. He started therapy in secret, paying cash so no insurance paper trail reached his parents. The therapist asked the questions he avoided. "What are you running from?" Ryan had no answer that didn't sound like cowardice. Liam turned 5 the same summer Ryan's relationship with Claire ended in a quiet conversation over coffee. She had found a hidden folder on his laptop filled with old photos of Seattle and one ultrasound image he couldn't delete. "I deserve someone who's all in," she said without anger, and Ryan couldn't argue. He threw himself into marathon training along the lakefront, running until his lungs burned and his mind went blank. Work became his identity. Late nights, early mornings, the corner office with the city skyline. His parents introduced him to daughters of their church friends, and he went on the dates out of obligation, always polite, always distant. In Seattle, Ethan watched Liam start kindergarten with a backpack almost as big as he was. The boy had Ryan's smile and a stubborn streak that made Ethan laugh and cry in equal measure. Parent-teacher conferences, soccer practices on muddy fields, bedtime stories about dragons and brave knights. Ethan dated casually, nothing serious, always making sure Liam met anyone new only after months of careful thought. His own parents visited often, spoiling their grandson with trips to the aquarium and stories about growing up in Oregon. The community rallied around them. The neighborhood block parties included Liam like family. One rainy afternoon, Ethan took Liam to the science center where a display about family trees caught the boy's eye. "Where's my other dad?" Liam asked, pointing at the blank space on the paper they were coloring. Ethan swallowed hard and answered honestly. "He had to go away for a while, buddy. But you have me, and that's forever." Liam nodded like it made perfect sense and drew a stick figure with a big smile anyway. That night, Ethan sat on the porch with a glass of wine, watching the ferries cross the Sound, wondering if Ryan ever thought about them. Ryan's mother called one evening to announce his cousin's wedding. "Bring a date," she urged. He hung up and stared at the Chicago skyline, the panic from 7 years ago rising again like bile. He booked a flight to Seattle on impulse, telling himself it was just to see the city, not to find Ethan. The plane landed in a gray drizzle that felt like coming home. He drove past their old condo, past the hotel where he had walked away, and parked near the Ballard house he had found through a mutual friend's social media. Lights glowed in the windows. He sat in a rental car for an hour, watching shadows move behind the curtains, then drove away without knocking. 7 years after the wedding that never ended, Ryan sat in his Chicago office scrolling through LinkedIn when a suggested connection popped up. Ethan's profile updated with a new job title and a profile picture of him and a little boy at the Space Needle. The boy had Ryan's nose and the same crooked grin he saw in his own childhood photos. Ryan's coffee went cold in his hand. He clicked through to Ethan's public posts, heart hammering, until he found a birthday video from last month. Liam blew out 7 candles while Ethan cheered behind him. The caption read, "My whole world." Ryan closed the laptop and walked out of the building into the cold wind off the lake. He spent the next week in a fog, canceling meetings and ignoring calls from his parents. The therapist he had stopped seeing 2 years earlier got an emergency appointment request. "I think I have a son," Ryan said in the quiet office, the words tasting like ash. The therapist didn't flinch. "What do you want to do about it?" Ryan didn't have an answer. He flew to Seattle the following weekend under the pretense of a work conference. This time he parked down the street from the house and watched Liam ride his bike in the driveway while Ethan steadied the seat. The boys' laughter carried on the breeze. Ryan gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened and drove to a hotel, where he stared at the ceiling until dawn. Ethan noticed the strange car, but shrugged it off as a neighbor's visitor. Life was full. Liam's soccer team made playoffs, the company launched a new app, and a blind date with a kind architect named Daniel had turned into something promising. He told himself the past was buried. Then one Tuesday afternoon, the doorbell rang. Ethan opened it to find Ryan standing on the porch, older, thinner, eyes haunted. "We need to talk," Ryan said. Ethan felt the ground tilt. Liam's voice called from inside, asking who was at the door. The confrontation happened in the kitchen while Liam played video games in the next room with headphones on. Ethan kept his voice low, but the anger vibrated through every word. "You left me at our wedding. 7 years, Ryan. 7 years of doing this alone." Ryan stood by the counter, hands trembling as he looked at the drawings on the fridge, Liam's name scrawled in crayon. "I know. God, I know. I saw the pictures. He's mine, isn't he?" Ethan laughed bitterly. "Biologically, yes. In every way that matters, he's mine." They argued for hours. Ryan tried to explain the panic. The phone call from his father the morning of the wedding warning him he would be disowned. The fear that he could never be the man Ethan deserved. Ethan listened, tears streaming, then told him to leave. "You don't get to show up now and play dad." Ryan didn't leave the city. He checked into an Airbnb and spent days walking the same trails they used to hike together, replaying every moment. He called his parents and for the first time told them the truth. He was gay, he had a son, and he had run because he was terrified. The silence on the other end lasted 30 seconds before his mother started crying. His father hung up. Ryan sat on a park bench near the house and cried too. Ethan told Marcus everything over beers that weekend. His friend listened, then said the words Ethan had avoided. "Liam has started asking more questions about his other dad. Maybe this is the universe's way of giving you both a second chance." Ethan hated how right it sounded. He agreed to one supervised visit at a neutral park. Liam met Ryan with the open curiosity only children possess. "You look like me," the boy said, tilting his head. Ryan knelt in the grass and answered every question about dinosaurs and soccer with a voice thick with emotion. Ethan watched from the bench, arms crossed, heart cracking open all over again. The months that followed were messy and slow. Ryan moved back to Seattle, taking a remote position so he could be close. He attended therapy with Ethan once a week, learning how to sit with the guilt instead of running from it. Liam warmed slowly, then eagerly, demanding weekend ice cream dates and bedtime stories from the man who shared his smile. Ryan's parents eventually flew out, awkward at first, but softening when Liam climbed into his grandfather's lap and asked about Chicago. Ethan's family offered cautious support, reminding Ryan he had a lot to prove. One crisp autumn evening on the same rooftop where Liam had his first birthday, Ryan took Ethan's hand. "I was wrong to leave. I was scared of who I was, but I'm not scared anymore. I want to be the father Liam deserves and the husband you always saw in me." Ethan looked at the city lights reflecting on the water and felt the last piece of the old wound heal. They didn't rush back into marriage, but they started dating again, carefully rebuilding what had been shattered. Liam thrived with 2 dads at school events and soccer games, telling his friends proudly about his family. Ryan still carried the regret, but it no longer defined him. He volunteered at the same LGBTQ center where Ethan had found strength, speaking to young men about the cost of hiding. Ethan published a small article about single gay fatherhood that went viral in parenting circles. Life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. True or false? Abandoning the one you love can ever be justified if it leads to greater self-understanding later?